Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, thank God it's Friday.
Yeah, what a week it's been, John. And this is really scary, this new indictment, John, that just came out, showing 2 New Yorkers and also an Iranian, an agent, they say, sent by Iran to try to kill President Trump as recently as just a few weeks ago. This is scary stuff, John. Really scary stuff. This president needs to be protected. He's the president-elect. And just a little bit ago, John, Congressman Michael Waltz was pounding his fist and saying this president needs to be protected. He should have military security and military planes immediately. John, we've talked about this. This is scary stuff.
Well, I mean, Iran is going to go broke when President Trump is president.
Yeah, well, and
maximum pressure, right? You put the maximum pressure on him, he'll enforce the sanctions, and you're right.
And so I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, that's why they're worried about him. I mean, to your point, John, they are worried. They're concerned that President Trump is he's clearly coming in soon. And we've already seen the impact around the world, too, because Qatar already said they're kicking out Hamas from their country. The world's getting ready.
All of a sudden, they're bowing down to the new king.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how quick that happened, John?
How about the European community stop buying all their gas and all their natural gas?
Yeah, they're saying we're going to go now to the U.S. We're going to cut off buying from Russia. I mean, my question is, John, you've been talking about this for a year. What took them so long, you know?
Well, before, they'd rather be friends of Russia because if you're a friend of Russia, they won't attack you.
Right. And
so that's
now
why
suddenly,
Germany was buying from them.
Yep.
Now
if
suddenly
I'm
a
your
new
customer,
sheriff.
you're not going to kill your customer?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Governor Patterson.
But getting back to the issue about the protection of the president, I think it was certainly foreseeable that President Trump might win the election. It was known that there was an assassination attempt or several attempts being made on him. How much more foresighted would it have been if they put the extra military protection for him in immediately, as soon as he...
Who's going to do it? Joe Biden?
Why not?
Look, do you think he would?
I mean, I don't understand why this got into a situation where now it's a debate over how much protection the president should have. I think whatever is
we all agree with you, but I don't think Washington agrees with us.
Yeah, that's the sad reality.
But John, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is why didn't they think about this last week so that we wouldn't even be having this conversation now?
Honestly, very
Judge
simple.
Weinberg?
Very simply, the Biden administration should go out there and say to Iran as follows: you shall not do this. If you do this, we will wipe you off the face of the earth. There's an active war against the entire United States of America. Unacceptable. Stop now while you still have any kind of territory left.
And today, President Trump, along with Elon Musk, called Ukraine, called Zelensky.
Yeah, there was a call that took place, we know, in the last 24 hours with Trump and Zelensky of Ukraine. And Elon Musk is on the line, which shows the power that Elon Musk is going to have in this administration. And also, John, Elon Musk is a lot richer. His net worth has surged past $300 billion. I mean, which is incredible. Tesla's market value apparently has crossed $1 trillion. And it just goes to show Elon Musk is going to be playing a big role.
Just a billionaire.
I'd love to. And wouldn't you love to sing that song?
The $300 billion man.
Wow, isn't that incredible, you guys?
I'm disappointed and jealous. I mean, I only have about $1.5 billion myself, and this man is $300 billion.
You dress like a trillionaire, Gov, today.
Thank you.
You dress like a trillionaire. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Speaking of money, John, Governor Hochul talking about congestion pricing.
What took us so long? Everybody
amazing?
says it's going to be the day after the election. It's over a week almost.
You can't make it up that suddenly now she's looking at bringing that in.
Now, did she cut the price or not?
Who knows? We'll see.
Who will see? But
I
but
believe
it's
she
being
did cut the
floated out.
price. That's the one thing I think
cut it.
she
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
So you will still be a
It's too much
trillionaire
for the
after all.
suburbs to
Yeah,
pay.
no, my money is safe.
Your money's safe. Okay, good. And you know what? As we're looking at all of this stuff, speaking of the tectonic shift with Trump coming in, John, we're seeing all these.
They also said
to
Israel that if Israel feels like knocking out the nukes, the nuclear plants at Iran, so be it.
Yeah, Trump has already said, let's kind of go for it. And he's giving a signal to say, there's a new sheriff.
Did the Iranians have a, oh, crap, this moment?
I think they did. They sure did.
After they
sure
lost
did.
17 out of their 17 terrorist leaders?
Yeah, they sure did. By the way, the other people worried, of course, are the cartels and all these others, because there's all these reports, John, that the cartels are trying to hurry up and rush and get people across the border because they know what's going to happen when President Trump comes to office.
Trump has already sent a message to leadership in Mexico, do not let these guys in.
Yes, he's already said do not, but we'll see, right? We'll see if they listen or if they're going to try to take advantage. That's the scary thing, guys, this timetable now, because you've got until January 20th until Trump comes in, and there's a lot of things that could happen, or he could say don't do it in the meantime.
Remember what happened when Reagan was giving the inaugural address, don't you?
Yes.
They were releasing the American hostages.
Yeah, and
literally at the same time.
I know that famous moment, So we'll see what happens between now and then, guys.
You understand we got Alan Dershowitz on. What are we going to talk about?
Well, Professor Alan Dershowitz, it's great to have you here. First of all, your reaction to these threats coming from Iran against President Trump that are continuing to this day, obviously.
Well, technically, it's a declaration of war by Iran against the United States. Let's remember that the First World War started with an assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. And when you assassinate or try to assassinate a president or a president-elect, Ferdinand was in the same position that Trump is in. He was to be the emperor, but he wasn't. And that started a war. And the United States legally has completely a legitimate basis for attacking Iran. Remember also, Iran has attacked American citizens, American soldiers, starting in the mid-1980s and continuing until, the last several months. They've done it through their proxies. So I'm hoping that the presidency of Donald Trump will bring regime change in Iran, which will solve the Middle East problem forever. It will create alliances between Israel and the Arab states. Iran would become an ally. They had been an ally of Israel. Most Iranian people are pro-American, not anti-Israel, and against their own regime. And we can help bring democracy to Iran and bring peace to the Middle East. And I think Trump will think positively about that. I think he'll start with sanctions, with very, very strong sanctions that he had, of course, 4 years ago, that could bankrupt Iran and help with regime change. But then if Iran dares to attack Israel again, they haven't done it so far, they said they would. Now, Israel then, even with Biden, has a green light to go and then, without limitations, attack Iran's oil and nuclear facilities. So I think we're beginning to tick down possibly to the end of the Iranian regime.
Wow, that would be amazing. Ed Cox.
The Shah was very close to Israel and to the United States, considered an ally until Carter blew it and let the Ayatollahs come in and push them out.
Right. I had dinner the other night with the Shah's son, Pahlavi, and he is very pro-Israel as well. In fact, I had dinner with him with a very prominent pro-Israel person, and he speaks very, very highly of Israel and of people he knows in Iran that are both supportive of the United States and supportive of Israel. So I'm hoping that one of the most important foreign policy improvements that Trump will bring will be in relation to Iran. But I wanted to mention one more thing, because, I was at Harvard 50 years. The idea that a Harvard professor would cancel a class because Trump won the election.
Oh, yes.
Is unbelievable. The same professor would have had champagne in class if Harris had won the election. And if I were a student, I would go to class without the professor. Then I would sue the school for the portion of my tuition that was wasted by the teacher not showing up, make the teacher pay back a portion of his salary. Sure, it's all symbolic, but these professors have to learn. They have no right to interject their politics into the classroom and into their attendance policies. It's outrageous.
Yeah, it is outrageous. Governor Patterson.
Alan, I remember on a Friday afternoon in 1963, I was 9 years old, and the teacher came in and said the president's been shot. And then she came back about 45 minutes later and said the president has died. And we were completely thrown off. But, you know, Saturday and Sunday went by. Monday, we went back to school again. I mean, you just can't react every time something happens.
You know, I was in the Supreme Court as a law clerk, and I had to deliver the message, personally had to deliver the message to the 9 justices who were in conference that Kennedy had been killed. And then they all gathered. And again, the Chief Justice told the justices where to go, how to protect themselves. The law clerks remained on, and business as usual. You know, that's America. In America, we persist. We're not snowflakes. We shouldn't be teaching our students that, oh, my God, if something bad happens to you politically, the first thing you do is you cry and you see psychological help. That's not America. And I would have hoped that wouldn't be Harvard. But it is Harvard, and it is Princeton, and it is Georgetown University did it. You would think these schools would try to teach their students strength in the face of adversity, not weakness and crying.
Thank you for leaving out Columbia.
Yeah,
sir.
well, yeah, Columbia and Barnard. Let's not forget. You know what's amazing, Professor Dershowitz, and you can obviously understand this. This to me is just it's appalling because Columbia and Barnard, there are a number of Jewish students that after October 7th, after the horror of what happened to Israel after October 7th, they weren't allowed to have their classes canceled. They were obviously horrified. They're furious that, you know, after the election of Trump, some of the professors are allowing these safe spaces. I mean, first of all, the standards are unbelievable. I mean, what a hypocrisy. I mean, how horrible that you don't do it for after October 7th, but yet after Trump, you give them cookies and milk?
Yeah, and look what happened yesterday in Amsterdam, a pogrom. And where does the pogrom come from? It comes from Columbia University and Harvard students who were saying globalize the Intifada. What does globalize the Intifada mean? It means attack Jewish and Israeli soccer fans who are trying to go to a soccer match in Amsterdam. And that's going to spread. It's going to happen in Paris because the Israeli team is going to play the Paris team next. This is going on all through Europe. The Intifada is being globalized as the result of these radical students who are being encouraged. And, you know, I think only one small part of the reason why Harris lost is because she and her running mate were they were pandering to the radicals, to the students. And, you know, there was a horrible article in yesterday's New York Times by a self-hating Jew named Peter Beinart, who said that the only reason the Democrats lost the election is because they weren't anti-Israel enough. If only Harris had campaigned with Rashida Tlaib instead of with other people, they would have won the election. My God, do you learn nothing? Do you know nothing? I mean, obviously, the reason this election went the way it did is because Americans are centrists, and they reject ideologues on the hard left. And I think they just had it. I think the protesters really helped the Republicans win. American people don't want their universities and their streets to be taken over by anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic rioters. And I think that was one of the most important messages.
Yeah, absolutely. Judge Weinberg.
Alan, I want to talk to you about Jack Smith's request to Judge Chutkan to cancel further proceedings in the January 6th case, which she's entertaining. What do you say about that?
What I think he's going to do, he's going to get his revenge. He's going to drop the criminal prosecution, but he is going to write the most biased report, and he's going to try to do it before Trump gets in office. So the current attorney general will allow that report to be made public, and he's going to try desperately to do in his report what he can't do in the courts. And let's remember, too, that although the lawfare against Trump has ended because obviously he's not going to be prosecuted, and I think the New York case will be reversed, they're still going after the lawyers. Project 65 is now more important than ever before. This is a group of hard-left lawyers who want to disbar any lawyer who ever represented Donald Trump. They actually filed a bar charge against me in Massachusetts. I represented President Trump in front of the United States Senate, and I filed an of-counsel brief in Arizona saying that if you're going to use voting machines, the companies have to come clean as to what their voting machines, what their algorithms are for the future. And for that reason, Project 65 is going after me and going after many other decent lawyers. And they said their goal is to discourage lawyers like me from defending President Trump. So lawfare isn't over. It's over in relation to President Trump because he won the election. But it's not over in relation to other people who have supported Trump and supported the Constitution legally.
Thank you, Professor Dershowitz, and let's save America.
Yep. Well, you do a great job doing it, so thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor. And joining us now, we have Victoria Coates, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump. Victoria, first your reaction to this Iranian plot, this threat. You understand it all too well.
No, thanks for having me on, Rita. This is really, I think, stark evidence of the direct threat on the president-elect that has been in place really since January of 2020 when he had the courage to order the hit on Qasem Soleimani. That's what very clear from this indictment, what all of this is in response to. And it shows you how serious his security situation has been since then. And it's outrageous that it took until the Butler, Pennsylvania incident for the Secret Service to start to take this seriously. I mean, I thank heavens we didn't have a more serious event involving him. Mahsa Ahmadinejad, the Iranian dissident reporter who's living in Manhattan with you guys now, was almost directly attacked by a hitman a couple of years ago, and she is part of this indictment as well. And when they scooped up two guys, but there's a third who fortunately appears to be in Iran, and hopefully we will prevent him from moving around. We can't indict him in Iran, but this is an ongoing direct threat to the president-elect.
Yeah, it's stunning. Why has the current president not pounded his fist? We've talked about this. Why is he not saying, wait a minute? And today, now that this indictment has come out, it's the FBI, it's the DOJ. He knows all the details. They made it public. And the fact that they were planning to do something, they said even as recently as the anniversary of October 7th, they've even signaled that they plan to do it after the election. That's now. I mean, this is an ongoing threat to the president-elect of the United States, the former president, and we haven't heard anything today from the White House. I mean, that to me is a disgrace, Victoria.
Apparently for them, this isn't even bad manners, and they haven't had the good grace to fire Rob Malley, their special envoy for Iran, who's suspended without pay for now well over a year for leaking intelligence to the Iranians. Did he leak stuff that put the former, now president-elect, in danger? Classified information? I mean, there should be so many questions. And as you said, this shouldn't be a political question. This should be an American question. I don't care who it is. If I heard any foreign power was, plotting to kill Barack Obama, I would be as angry as I am over this. It's utterly outrageous. It should be intolerable. And no crickets from the current president and the vice president, even though this is their FBI, which I have to credit mightily for persevering with this, even given the atmosphere they were in. Not a surprise. It's after the election it comes out.
Yeah, that's the one. That's a great point. The timing of this. Judge Weinberg.
Victoria, good to talk to you again. Why did the Obama administration, the Biden administration, plant all these pro-Iranian people in most sensitive positions in the U.S. government, in national security, in defense, and in state? What were they thinking?
Well, Judge, it's hard for me to put myself in their shoes, but, the best I can come up with is they honestly believe Iran can be a good negotiating partner for the United States and bring peace to the Middle East. And all I see from that, from the 8 years of Obama and the 4 years for Biden and Harris, at the end of Obama, we had Iran fat and happy from years of sanctions relief under the original nuclear deal. That is what they started, and then they, built up all of these regional proxies. We slowed them down during the first Trump term. The Biden people came back and tried it again and said, let's give them lots of money. Let's let them export 1.75 million barrels a day to the communist Chinese at a discount to keep our domestic prices down. And maybe they'll use that for what John Kerry promised us, to cure cancer or something. Well, they don't. And so we're doing the definition of insanity here. It makes the American people, and obviously the former president, distinctly less safe. It has to end.
Yeah, for sure. Ed Cox.
So President-elect Trump has made it clear that it's okay for Israel to take out the nuclear facilities of Iran. How does that rattle around Iran, and what's their reaction going to be now that becomes a reality for them?
That's a really important point, Ed, because that was new from the president-elect when he said that after the October 1st attack, that he thought the Israelis should go after the energy and the nuclear sites. And what Israel did the week before the election, I think, is not particularly well understood. They showed the Iranians they can run 100 planes 1,000 miles over the skies of Iran, destroy the targets of their choice, and the Iranians can do nothing about it. The Iranians don't have that capability. And now the Iranians know there's going to be a new sheriff in town who maybe takes all of this, as I said, a little personal, and that the Israelis are going to be right there with him. So really, I think a critical point, that was a shift from him. He doesn't want this. He does not want a war in the Middle East. None of us do. But if the Iranians don't change their behavior and change it on a dime, they're going to have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, go ahead, Gov Patterson, real quick.
Victoria, because it's going to be January 20th before President Trump takes office, do you think that Iran would immediately strike now because they're running out of time and they know exactly what will happen if President Trump gets in and has full power?
Well, Governor, good to hear your voice. You've been in our prayers. But, I think that's a critical point. But what we already see is behavior shifting around the globe. I don't know that the Iranians would do that, given how foolhardy it would be. It would only trigger a stronger response later. Given what they did in 1980 when President Reagan came in and they immediately released the hostages, I suspect they're going to act like a bully. And when the bullies stood up to, they're going to back down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, President Trump has just about said to Israel, do what you have to do.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely right, John. I mean, as he should. But they are going to need more help to take the kinds of actions we're looking at than I think this administration would supply. So, this is a tough period, but I have confidence that the fear of President Trump will keep the bad actors a little bit in their boxes.
I'm sure that Israel is going to wait till January 21st before they do anything.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. It'll be an interesting period.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Always a pleasure. Have a great weekend.
Let's take a break.
Yep, and then we got Steve Moore. Steve Moore.
Well, the stock market hit. You're sitting down. 44,000 on Dow Jones today. 6,000 on the S&P today. How far it's going to the Milky Way
and the stratosphere?
Let's take that break.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, 44,000 on the Dow Jones today, 6,000 on the S&P. Well, Steve Moore is with us. Steve, where the heck is it going?
Well, one thing is for sure, that all these economists and Wall Street guys who said Trump was going to be bad for the economy and bad for the cause of 1929 stock market crash had the story exactly wrong. This has been an amazing bull market run we've seen, over the last 3 days. I think it's just beginning. I think it's going to be an amazing run. And that's because, as you know, John Catsimatidis, this is a guy who's pro-business, he's pro-worker, he's pro-America, and that's what investors want.
Yes, and the unions are for him. The union workers are for him.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that I find so fascinating about this election is that we are now seeing, remember the old FDR New Deal coalition of Catholics and minorities and working class people. Guess what? They're all Republicans now.
A lot of them have registered as Republicans. Isn't that right, Steve?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. We've said this, for 6 or 7 years, but it's more true today than ever that Donald Trump has really transformed the Republican Party. He's caused an incredible political realignment with working class Americans, now Republicans. And sorry, John Catsimatidis, a lot of your really rich friends, they're Democrats now. And I remember, I was thinking of this the other day. Remember when Ronald Reagan ran for president in 1980? Remember he said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. And that's sort of what Donald Trump was saying, too, because Trump at one point was a Democrat. John, I think you were a Democrat at one point.
I was a Democrat.
Yeah.
By the way, Steve Moore, what do you make of a lot of the people in the media who are Democrats? They're having media meltdowns, we're calling it. Joe Scarborough famously the other day, after the election, somebody said on the show, butter is $7. He's like, no. Like it's like, milk is X. It's like, are you have they not been to a grocery store?
It's funny. On my show last week, More Money, one of my guests said, women, because the big issue was women. We were really worried that there'd be a huge gender gap, and there really wasn't. And why is that? And Rita, I'm not. I don't even identify as a woman, so I don't understand.
Well, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
I'm glad we cleared that up, Steve.
One of my guests said, this woman said, women are the CFOs of the families in America, and they pay the bills. And so they're the ones who've really been impacted and see firsthand right up front what gas costs, what food costs, what mortgage payments cost. And I thought that was a very insightful comment because women are the ones who really feel the effects of disinflation.
Yeah, and also, you look at the other issues too, where obviously security, that was a huge issue. Like if you looked at the exit polls, they're the ones who are worried, about, like you talk about the cost, but they're also the ones who are worried about safety in their communities. And the migrant crisis was hitting them hard too.
I think it's not a healthy thing that the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left. And I think we need voices like John Catsimatidis to say to the Democrats, come on, get back. What is it called? You call it common sense politics, common sense policy.
That's it. Extremism in any direction is not good.
Right, exactly. And I think it would be healthy. I mean, maybe you should run for president next time as a Democrat because
I'm running for president of Greece.
That's what I was going to say. Which country?
Well, you know what job I want? I got called by the transition people. They said, Steve, what job would you want? I said, I want to be ambassador to Bermuda.
Yes.
Can we visit?
You have to wear those short pants, though.
Yeah, no, I love it. I look good in shorts. But look, I think there's a real sense of optimism, don't you guys? I mean, that this guy is going to really come in and do pro-America things. I really hope he reaches out. Remember, it was 4 years ago exactly, that Joe Biden gave a famous speech and he said, I'm going to unite the country. I can't think of one thing he did to try to unite the country, and I hope Trump can do that. I mean, that would be an amazing feat.
So we did something yesterday. We stole away from the Democratic Party. Happy Days Are Here Again, and gave it to all Americans. Where do we have it?
Well, did you see what we said?
Days are here again. The skies above are clear again. Let us sing the song of cheer again. Happy days are here again.
All right, shut that thing off.
It's for all Americans. All Americans.
That's right. Even for Democrats.
Thank you. All Americans.
Yeah. Did you see what we said in our hotline yesterday? We always put a little cartoon or a meme, and we said, we got to hand it to Kamala Harris. She said she would bring joy back to America, and she's done it.
Yes, that was a great cartoon, Steve. I loved it.
Yeah,
Could you get me an autographed copy of that, please?
I will. And you guys are great. I love. But we have a great show tomorrow, John, on More Money. So
that's right. Tomorrow, Saturday, it's 5 hours of the economy.
Yeah.
Larry Kudlow from 10 to 1, and then Steve Moore from 1 to 3.
Amazing. I love it. And we have so many smart listeners to our shows, and I learn a lot from listening to them. So it's a great honor to do that. I hope that people listen in 1 to 3 for More Money.
Thank you, Steve Moore.
Thank you, Steve.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Rita, let's go to the... You have other hot news today?
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
Yes, I do, John. First of all, 3 people are facing charges over allegations that they were involved in an Iranian plot to assassinate President-elect Donald Trump. 2 of them have been arrested, and one of them still at large. He is said to be 51 years old. They have his name, and they believe he's hanging out in Iran. It is a stunning indictment. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. And also, a fire in Ventura County, California, has burned nearly 21,000 acres and is only 7% contained. Authorities say over 100 structures have been lost and at least half a dozen people injured as a result of that fire. More than 10,000 residents have been evacuated. And everybody, coming up, we are going to be talking to former border chief and former acting ICE director Ron Vitello about what it's going to look like at the border when Trump comes in. And also, Congressman Mike Lawler handily winning re-election. That's awesome. And Miranda Devine. We got an awesome show coming up.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. And, of course, we're talking about a number of illegal migrants, these caravans that are saying that they're planning to hurry up and cross the border before Trump gets into office. There is a new sheriff in town, and joining us is the former border chief and also former acting ICE director, someone who knows and understands what it's like at the border, Ron Vitello. Ron, it's so great to have you back here on the show. This has got to be like an earthquake for those who are trying to cross the border illegally, and apparently Trump has also already told Mexico, don't think of it, don't do anything. Your thoughts of how things are certainly going to change for the better in terms of American security at the border.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me. There's a long list for the president to work on as it relates to the border. The good news is he's been successful in giving the tools to the front line to be able to solve this problem, to end the chaos, to end the incentives that a caravan would have for catch and release at the border. And so I'm very hopeful, and I'll give you one checklist item already. The morale at the front line of DHS, my former colleagues in the Border Patrol, are going to be very happy. They've already expressed their joy, if you will, using your words earlier, the joy of having a president in the White House, in the Oval Office, that cares about what they do and wants them to be successful. I'm so happy for them, and I look forward to the success that they will have, finally, the support of the Oval Office and the Commander-in-Chief to let them do the work they know how to do effectively.
Yeah, that's a great point, because a lot of them were saying that they were going to resign if Biden. I can't imagine how tough it must be for the border agents working there, the morale. And also, remember, it was this administration where even Mayorkas, the head of Homeland Security, was not defending them with the charge of the migrant whipping. Remember they threw the Border Patrol agents under the bus, Ron.
That's what they've been faced with over the last 3+ years with this administration. They kicked off the worst border surge in our lifetimes in the history of the U.S.-Mexico border. And those agents, unfortunately, they're the front line. They had to deal with it each and every day as it got worse. And now they have an opportunity. They know that help is on the way. They know that the president ran on this issue. The American people sent a signal around the globe to any of the would-be migrants that are in the pipeline that it's not going to be the same when Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief. And I'm very hopeful that we're going to fix this problem. He knows how to do it. He knows what works and what doesn't work. His leverage with Mexico when I was still at the department was amazing. Mexico did things that I had never seen them do in my entire career in a sustained way. And so having that backup in the White House, having that direction and having that leadership is going to make a huge difference. And then putting the rule of law back in place as it relates to our immigration system, as it relates to border security, and protecting our communities, because they've suffered greatly under the scourge of these gangsters that are new to our towns and cities all over America, and the death and destruction that they've caused to our people.
Ronald, how long is it going to take to get it down to zero?
Well, it's just a matter of getting the right people in place, getting the right operational procedures in place. It went very quickly when we had the migrant protection protocols successfully negotiated with Mexico, the safe third country agreements, which is all based in immigration law. He did that without Congress's help, and he found a way to access money to put border wall up, the infrastructure that the agents need to work safer. And so, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, just having the understanding that things are going to be different is going to dissuade people from selling all their things, from contracting with smugglers and getting in that pipeline. There's already an impact.
What is it going to take to get the borders under control from the drug dealers?
Well, we have to end the incentives. You have to give those agents that are down there the freedom of movement. So they're not covered up with the humanitarian mission. They're not covered up with large surge of mass migration at the southwest border, which we've seen throughout the pendency of the Biden-Harris administration. You make that problem smaller. You give those agents the time and opportunity to patrol that border so they can make those seizures. They can save people who are in distress. They can rescue people from the human traffickers. That's the kind of thing that will happen organically because they'll have less of that humanitarian mission to carry out, and they'll be able to focus on drug smuggling. And then a real commitment with us sharing with Mexico and others on the international stage to put these cartels back in the box, because they've been enriched throughout the last 3.5 years of the Biden-Harris administration. So there's a lot of work to do both on the diplomatic side to make sure that Mexico and we are on the same page as taking it to the smugglers. Instead of them controlling the border, let authorities in Mexico control their southwest border with Guatemala, and having a shared responsibility on our border to, again, make the migration problem smaller so they can focus on the smugglers, the smuggling, and those cartels.
Absolutely. We're talking to the former border chief and also former acting ICE director, Ron Vitello. Ed Cox.
So, Ron, you secure the border. You got that locked down. Deportation program. How does that work? How do you get around sanctuary cities? How do you get the criminals and make sure they get out? That's the first deportations you want to do.
And by the way, Ed, did you see also, and Ron, you probably saw this, J.B. Pritzker, who is the governor of Illinois, said, if you want to remove anybody who's in our community, you got to go through me. They're already signaling that they don't want anybody to be deported.
It's outrageous. So how do the officers do that? What's the president need to do to enable them to do it?
Well, we've got to take on this issue of sanctuary cities, but without their help, there's lots of sheriffs. You saw all those red counties on the map, right, in the Electoral College map. All those counties that went for Trump. There's lots of sheriff's officers. There's lots of frontline law enforcement people who control the jails in the United States. Reconnect that pipeline that takes people from the jail and from the courthouse into the deportation pipeline and get them on the path to removal once they've come into the country illegally and then committed other crimes in our communities. Fix that problem. Disincentivize sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like Illinois and make them pay. Take away their grant money. If they want to have law enforcement programs sponsored by the Department of Justice in the United States, then they're not going to get that money if they're going to give sanctuary to criminals who are also in the country illegally. But then you have right now people in the front line of ICE, the deportation officers, the enforcement removal operations, that know how to find people who are afoul of the immigration law, who have been convicted. So start targeting those criminals like this vicious gang from Venezuela. Put them on the priority list. Go after them hammer and tong until that problem gets smaller, and then work down the list, starting with the people who are a threat to public safety, and then working down into – so they're doing that right now. They're very good at it, locating those people, knowing where they are, targeting their arrest and putting them in the removal pipeline.
Yeah.
And so empower those teams, give them the tools, and then give them the support, and then link them with law enforcement agencies all over the country who want to help protect their communities by removing these criminals day after day.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, there are so many, as we know, we heard. Thank you so much, Ron. This is such an important topic. Thank you so much. And boy, a lot of work ahead, but a lot of very important work ahead. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, great. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And John, I understand you have now Mike Lawler calling, and of course he just got a big re-election in New York.
Calling in today is Congressman Mike Lawler, and from the Hudson Valley. And Congressman, give us your evaluation. What the heck is going on in Congress? Who has the majority? Is it, and when will we know?
Well, thanks for having me on, John. I think Republicans are poised to keep the majority. We're waiting on results. Arizona, Alaska, and California. That will determine the outcome. But so far, so good. While it was disappointing that we lost 3 seats in New York on Election Day, we picked up 2 in Pennsylvania and 1 in Michigan, which offset those losses. And now we're holding the seats in California and Arizona, and potentially pick up in Alaska and Colorado. So, I think we are poised to keep the House. It's just a question of what the margin is. We could be anywhere from 218 to 223. So it's just it's going to take another few days to get the final numbers, but I feel very good about where we are.
Understood. And are you guys planning the agenda of all the investigations going on in the Congress? I mean, this was the big item, that the investigations go on or they stop.
I'm sure there'll be some investigations that likely continue to try and get as much information as possible, including, for instance, with respect to the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan. But I think, obviously, we're going to have a very busy agenda in this next Congress, and the administration is going to want to move quickly on a number of key issues, including the economy, the tax bill, energy policy, the border and immigration, as well as obviously foreign policy. So there's going to be a lot that we need to get to work quickly on. And I suspect, a lot of the focus is going to be centered around that.
The one I was really concerned about is the foreign money that was coming in from different countries and being fed through our systems. And that's the investigation I'm really concerned about. And the other concern I have is the what else? I mean, the American people want one vote for each citizen. I mean, when California says we want you to go and vote and we don't want to check any ID, it's against the law for us to check your ID. I mean, how silly can that be?
Well, I think you're definitely going to see a lot of movement on key legislation like the SAVE Act requiring proof of citizenship. You may see legislation with respect to voter ID for federal elections. Obviously, the investigations into foreign dollars will most assuredly continue. We've seen how foreign dollars have come into our education system. We've seen how land is being purchased by sensitive military bases and locations by China. So I think there's definitely going to be a heavy, look at the foreign dollars that are flowing into the United States.
What else worries you, Congressman?
Look, we saw on election night the American people were very clear by voting for Donald Trump overwhelmingly in both the popular vote and the Electoral College, and by keeping a House majority and flipping the Senate, that they want to see us take action on these critical issues, including the economy, taxes, energy policy, and the border. I think we need to move expeditiously on all of these issues and work to address them legislatively. Obviously, we've, in this Congress, done a lot of work passing bills through the House that Chuck Schumer sat on in the Senate. So, there's a good framework to work with, and obviously I'm sure President Trump will weigh in with what he would like to see, and we will work through that. But I think the objective here is to address the domestic issues that we're dealing with and reestablish America's role in the world. This administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has been such a disaster on foreign policy, creating one crisis after the next. We have to address these challenges and bring about a new era of peace and prosperity around the globe, because this cannot continue down the road that we've seen under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Well, Congressman, we look forward to continuing to have a discussion, and we look forward to you guys officially taking the majority. And please keep us informed. You have my text. Please text us as soon as you know.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Congressman Mike Lawler. And you are the congressman that in my Chappaqua house.
You got it. Happy
Keep
to
us
represent
safe.
you.
Keep us safe.
Will do.
Well,
wow, great conversation,
yes.
John. Wow.
Yes.
And
He's
how
a smart guy.
and we're waiting to see. Ed, what do you think? How close till the GOP likely gets to keep the House?
Oh, they'll keep the majority of four probably 4 or 5. That's where it is now.
Yeah, the Hill says 216. They're right at the door.
They will, and they're enough outstanding that they're going to get. We got it.
All right, and you guys, we have a quick break now. We have Miranda Devine talking about.
We found her.
We found her. We're talking about the media meltdown and a lot more.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, we are back. Miranda, we found you.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I was doing a live talk to.
We're happy to have you.
We're happy to have you. We love you.
Yeah.
So what's the hot news today?
Oh gosh, what is the hot news? I don't know. A lot of talking about the new Donald Trump's down in Mar-a-Lago sort of allocating jobs, and so there are a few that are still up in the air. But he named Susie Wiles as his chief of staff, first female chief of staff ever in the White House, and so what a repudiation of all the lies about him, that he's a big sexist and he doesn't care for women working around him and doesn't think that they're smart enough. He's always had really good, strong, smart women around him. He did in his first administration, and this is a sign that he'll do it again this time. And Susie Wiles, of course, ran his campaign, was absolutely brilliant, and he calls her the Ice Maiden because she's very quiet and she's quite deadly, I think, beneath that very gentle exterior.
And she will not go on TV or whatever. That is what the chief of staff should do. Should not be public.
Exactly.
Should be back in the office making things work.
Yeah, she's a worker bee.
Yeah,
she's got an amazing background with Reagan, Jack Kemp, Rick Scott, Ron DeSantis, and, of course, President Trump.
I mean, she really has a record second to none in terms of getting winning candidates over the line with emphatic victories. I mean, she was responsible for Ron DeSantis's just total blowout in his last election in Florida for governor, and she's done it again with Donald Trump. So, incredible woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Judge Weinberg?
Miranda, what do you think about this meltdown of the media because of Trump's election victories?
Well, look, it's pathetic. But what it tells you is that they have absolutely no ability, capacity, or desire to reform themselves. And so they're just going to fade away to obscurity because they didn't have their finger on the pulse. They threw everything they had at Donald Trump, like insane, calling him Hitler and a fascist and authoritarian, blah, blah, blah. You heard it all. It was so off the pace. It wasn't reality, and the American people saw through it. They saw through their lies, and they've lost all credibility. And really, if you're a news organization and you're telling people what's going on in the world, you have to be trusted. You have to have credibility, and they don't have it anymore. American people realize that all the lies and hoaxes they were told, and they've turned off. And so I think they've just rendered themselves, you can see by the viewer numbers. On election night, Fox had the highest viewer numbers of any network, including CBS, ABC, etc. Those multi-billion-dollar monoliths. It was Fox, because Fox actually tells the truth on both sides and isn't too, it's obviously conservative, leans right, but it's not crazy on the right. It's just, it tries to be fair and balanced.
Yeah, common
that's
sense.
The motto.
Common sense.
Sense.
By the way, are you hearing anything, Miranda, of like who might else be in Trump's cabinet? I mean, we know Susie Wiles because that was announced. We know there's a lot of people that seem to be sort of in the hopper. What are you hearing intelligence-wise who might be in the administration?
Well, Robert Lighthizer, I think, for trade again. And I'm hearing Scott Bessant as Treasury Secretary. He's he travelled, in fact, on the last day on the plane with Trump, and he definitely has his ear. And I think he might have coined the phrase that Trump used as his final message, which was that Trump will usher in a new golden era for America. So if he was in charge of economic policy, I think the country's in good hands. And of course, there are all those terrific people who were there in that first administration that got the economy humming. And I think that a lot of those will be asked to come back.
Yeah, I think so, too. What do you make of the finger pointing also behind the scenes for Democrats? Joe Biden came out yesterday. He looked really happy. He almost looked like it's the happiest I've ever seen him at the White House. I mean, it was such a bizarre thing.
He was tripping to the podium.
Yes.
Literally. Like
Yes.
he was over the moon.
So Miranda,
add that. Yeah.
Who is going to lead the Democratic Party in the wilderness? It's a mess.
Well, I mean, they have to figure that out. But obviously, Nancy Pelosi, who's sort of been the empress for way too long, she's completely covered herself in just ignominy. She was the one that pushed Joe Biden out. And I think Joe Biden would tell you today that he would have not done any worse than Kamala Harris and probably would have won Pennsylvania. I mean, you saw just with the Catholic vote, Donald Trump got it resoundingly this time. I think 54%. I can't remember the exact number I saw. But this was something that Joe Biden beat him on a lot. So I think Joe Biden's numbers were like 30% higher than Kamala Harris's were with the Catholic vote, which was decisive in Pennsylvania. And so I think that probably Biden might have done better. I don't think he still would have won because he's terribly unpopular and his policies were dreadful.
And by the way,
he never managed.
And I think that's why he was smiling, Miranda. I think
he was happy.
Yeah, he was. Miranda, thank
happy.
you. We love having you on, my friend. Thank you.
John Shapiro's going to run in 28 for president.
You always have the good inside scoop, John. You always do.
Well, what do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
And God did help us.